Welcome to In the Envelope, a podcast from Backstage, the #1 resource for actors and talent seekers. I am your host, Jack Smart, awards editor at Backstage, and I'm here to guide you through every aspect of the entertainment industry with the help of some of your favorite stars. These intimate, inspirational conversations with today's most award-worthy film, television, and theater artists provide you, dear listener, advice on how to live the creative life, personal stories of success and failure alike, and maybe, just maybe, a tantalizing glimpse in the envelope.
I think your imagination is everything and how far you want to go with it. If you just start doing it at home and have fun with it, you can't really make any mistakes. You have the opportunity to create something that is uniquely your voice.
You guys want to hear an awesome podcast interview or what? Welcome to another episode of In the Envelope. This is your host, Jack. We are joined today by Nancy Cartwright, the voice you just heard of Nancy Cartwright. Obviously, if you're sitting here wondering, how do I know that voice? Who is that voice? She sounds so familiar. That is because you likely recognize her as the voice behind Bart Simpson. I'm going to keep today brief because this was an extra long, extra delightful interview. You will hear me geeking out at one point during this interview with the lovely Nancy, who said that I asked her a question she's never been asked, which is sort of always secretly my goal with these interviews. Congratulations to Nancy if you're listening on your Emmy Award nomination. This was recorded before the Emmy nominations were announced. She's been nominated for her third time for voiceover performance as Bart and other characters on The Simpsons. Everyone, please head over to Backstage.com. We have very cool new articles from Backstage experts. 5 tips for creating a professional voiceover demo. A casting director's 4 tips for voiceover home reads. The voiceover content on Backstage.com, if you go to our voiceover specialty page, is very much up and running to suit your lockdown needs. Whether you are brand new to voiceover or a veteran looking to continue working in one of the only areas of the industry that is still up and running, check out Backstage.com and do listen on to this interview because Nancy covers the voiceover industry then and now, how it's affected by this crisis. And I gotta say, it makes getting involved in voiceover and a career in voiceover sound very exciting. And it's really inspiring. And I'm being cheesy, so let's get to it. Let's take a quick break and then get to Nancy Cartwright.
The voiceover business is more than just acting. It's a business. Voice actors are auditioning, negotiating, engineering, branding, connecting to sessions from home, and doing thousands of things every day to put them in the best position to succeed. So how do you learn about the business of the voiceover business? That part is easy. The Vocation Conference Online, eVocation, September 11th through the 13th. Join experts in the voiceover industry for classes, talks, panels, and forums on the business of the business. For more information and tickets, visit vocationconference.com.
A legend in the television and voiceover industries, Nancy Cartwright is the voice behind Bart Simpson and other characters on the world's longest-running sitcom, The Simpsons. She's also lent her distinctive voice to the Animaniacs, Kim Possible, Rugrats, The Replacements, and more, turned her autobiography, My Life as a 10-Year-Old Boy, into a one-woman play, and wrote and produced the film In Search of Fellini. For The Simpsons, she won the Voiceover Performance Emmy Award in 1992 and is in contention again this year for the 3rd time. Here is the iconic Nancy Cartwright. Nancy Cartwright, hi.
Hello.
I'm gonna warm up my voice during this interview. That's what we're gonna do.
You have the most awesome name. I'm just going to say
you.
Jack Smart. That is like, it just makes me want to ask question, but I'm not going to do it. My son's name is Jack. I love the name Jack.
Oh,
yeah,
I do too. Yeah.
Great. It's a solid kind of, where are you from?
Well, I'm from Honolulu, Hawaii, actually.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Wow, because that name Jack to me is like, it's such a Midwestern, maybe it could be a Northern Pacific Northwest even, because it's like lumberjack, kind of solid, and it has a strength behind it. So
sure, and smart.
But you're doing that with your voice, and you're giving that to lots of all of your listeners.
That's right. Yeah. It's not a pen name. Like I'm a writer. I'm an editor at Backstage, and people always ask, is it not your real name? But it is. It's my given name.
An awesome name. Well done.
Thanks.
Mom and Dad.
Yes. Well, they're definitely listening to this, so they'll thank you for thanking them, I'm sure. Thank you so much for joining our In the Envelope podcast. We are this podcast has been around for a long time, but we have this renewed focus on voiceover actors, voiceover talent, how to get into voiceover. And I'd love to, of course, grill you about that today. But in particular, we got to ask about what's going on. Like, I understand that you, as a voiceover actor with this long running gig on The Simpsons, that you are still working. How has your life changed? How's everything going? Well,
in terms of The Simpsons, yes, we're still doing it, which is amazing. And in fact, yesterday was incredibly it was a bit challenging day. I'm used to doing voiceovers, not in the studio. The fact that it's animation and voiceover lends itself to, you don't have to be there. Gotcha. You don't have to talk to the other actor. You follow?
Yeah.
So we can be remote. We can be away. Mm-hmm. And Hank lives in New York. Harry doesn't live in LA. All of us travel, and they still can do us at a local studio, and it's super easy and no problem. And somebody else is the engineer, and they set you up, and you got a headset on, and the director's back in Los Angeles, and they're giving you direction over the phone, and there's a slight delay, but it doesn't matter, because the setup, as long as it's being recorded and the sound is good, everything's fine. But doing it at home, hey, it's got its challenges. And I don't mean to sound like I'm complaining. Oh my God, we are so privileged. I really mean it. We're so privileged. I don't know who else is working in this industry besides the voiceover people.
Right.
Because of the way things are right now with this quarantine, lockdown, COVID disaster. So we all have our own setups at home. I haven't had a studio for a long time. I used to audition. I used to have a studio at my house.
Okay.
But what happened was I just kept turning down. I kept saying, no, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this.
At home.
And it was, I didn't know it wasn't the effort of doing it. I didn't like the content, Jack.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I started being a little bit picky about what it is. Well, not picky. There's a certain standard. There's certain things that I want to communicate and how I want to communicate it. And I feel like I'm privileged. I really do feel privileged. This was a bit ago, and I realized after doing rejections for about, a year, I'm like, you know what? I believe that the world is telling me, or the universe, however you want to look at it, the industry is telling me it's time for maybe you should start producing. Because the truth is that if I don't audition for a job, I didn't need to have another job. The Simpsons is like the mother lode, as anybody wanting to do voiceovers knows that. We all scored in a big, big way. But, and so I don't need to have another job, but I love doing what I'm doing, and I love working on other shows. But if I was turning down so many opportunities, I thought if I got cast in that part, that I would be taking away a job from somebody who, like me, was just starting, 40 years ago.
Gotcha. Yeah.
That makes sense. Totally. It's like, I want somebody to be able to, somebody who really wants to have this job, they should have the job. Because it's kind of something that it's a a bit of my own personal moral code is that, you should do what you love. And if you don't really love it, it's not going to come out very great.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So that was like a two-pronged win because I stopped doing it. I gave somebody else an opportunity to do it. Well, three-pronged really. And then I should go off and do something else.
Yeah.
It was a really good lesson. And so things have advanced and other people got work. Everybody wins,
Yeah. And you went into producing. I understand you wrote an episode of The Simpsons last year. I'm so fascinated I obviously want to ask about your early career and kind of how you really just hustled and hustled and hustled to do as much voice work and acting as possible. But it kind of sounds like, is it safe to say it's still part of your mission? You're still pushing yourself every day.
Yeah, it is.
It's
and
amazing.
I think that, you know what? Well, thank you. But I just feel like it's just who I am. And it's all about creating. It's all about what else can I do, and to cultivate and nurture the muse inside of me. Because I have found in time that I think it's definitely true for me, but I have an idea that it's actually true for any artist. Artists just love to create. That's what we do. Mm-hmm. And they don't have something and they're being stopped by either the industry or a person in their life or a show that they're on. It's like you have to have an outlet.
Yeah.
You have to be able to kind of rise above that and have some sort of a way to express yourself artistically. Because I think that's what we do as artists.
Definitely.
We communicate through, whether it's doing fun voices for the most successful scripted animated show in the history of television, or if it's for doing a podcast, or for doing sculpting or painting or dancing or whatever it is. You have to have an outlet. It doesn't mean that this is nurturing the muse. It's not necessarily putting money in your pocket.
Right.
That would be the ideal situation, obviously.
Yeah.
Again, it's like that do what you love thing is not based on monetary exchange.
Gotcha.
It's based on passion. Mm-hmm. So
if you're chasing it for pursuing art for the monetary value for purely financial reasons, it's maybe the wrong approach.
Yeah, good luck. And there are people actually that do succeed in that. They become very, very commercial, and that's fine. I mean, you kind of got to admire something about that for sure. But just as a generality, I just feel like you should just do what you love. But you had mentioned a couple things, and I do a lot of stuff, and I'm digging it, man. Whatever I can do at home, it's challenging to do some of the stuff that I do at home. It's like I've had to think out of the box a little bit, and how can I make this work? Because, like you had said before, doing The Simpsons from home, that's a bit of a challenge. I'm by myself and I'm a little technologically challenged.
Okay.
But it's not my thing, setting up a home studio.
Right.
So they were really helpful to me. And
gotcha.
to kind of like complete what I had started saying earlier. I interrupt myself all the time, by the way.
It's excellent. It's the best. No, it's great.
They were great. They helped me set up. They sent over the equipment because that was the point I was trying to make. I didn't have the equipment anymore. So they got me the equipment. I had to find the right room. I had an idea where it should be.
Yeah.
It needed to be super quiet. And Jack, about 10 days ago, I broke a gasket in my bathroom. It flooded my bathroom.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and it's an old house, and it had a wood floor. It ruined it, and it leaked down into the kitchen.
Oh, no.
So now it's like, oh, my gosh, I can't do this. How am I going to do this? Okay, all right, where's another place that I – so it's sort of setting up and moving my things into a whole different area. I'm showering in the guest house now, and – I'm a little out of sorts, but I know nobody's playing a violin for Nancy Cartwright.
Well, it's actually funny to hear. Like, it's so cool that that The Simpsons gets to keep going and that you can record from home. But one of the fascinating phenomenons from this whole crisis is this. A lot of office workers and a lot of people who had the commute to go into work every day are discovering the challenges of working from home. It's kind of funny to hear you're doing that too. You're still doing your job.
True.
Yeah.
It's true. Even yesterday I said, you know what? It's sort of like we are kind of establishing it's a new normal for the Simpsons for sure, because I'm not the only one that has to travel an hour and a half to get to work. When, I leave at like 8:30, 8:15 for a 10 o'clock because the 405 is so bad.
Yeah, it's not anymore.
Oh yeah, exactly. Before when COVID first landed, like an alien kind of thing, which it is.
Sure.
But when it first started happening, the rules were not quite established yet, and we were still going in. But the production crew, we went into the studio, and they were all seated way far apart.
Oh, okay.
And I was in the middle of the room, and they were keeping by the regulations and stuff. But then it just it just got a little bit stiffer, and so that's when they came up with the idea of setting us up at home.
Wow.
But they're wonderful. The engineers are great, and they're very patient with me, as well as others that are not so equipped with it. And same with Chucky on the Rugrats. That's Nickelodeon, and they did this same thing. Yesterday I did a table read, which has its own idiosyncrasies on how you do that, and they like us to be on Zoom so they can see the actors and our faces.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. And there's about 70 of us, Jack, on Zoom conferencing.
Wow.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
and
cool.
Wow. And people kind of get an insight into what a little portion of our house or a studio looks like. It's sort of a sneak peek. And I've got some animation art behind me where I do that. So that's kind of fun. But when we do the record, it's a whole different kind of a setup. And I had to become MacGyver's wife, Mrs. MacGyver, because
MacGyver, yes.
I did, because my computer, the laptop that I have, it's a MacBook, and it heats up because if I'm doing Zoom,
yes,
and I'm doing GarageBand, I think it's an app that they use. It's for sound. It's called GarageBand. So the sound, both of them is sucking up too much power, so my thing starts to overheat. And then the air cooler on the laptop. Oh my gosh.
It's very relatable. Like, yes, totally.
Crazy.
Because I've had a similar thing of I've had to set up my little podcast, quote unquote, studio on my couch in this basement that I live in right now.
Well, the sound is excellent.
Oh,
really.
good. Thank you.
There's no echo. It's like you did a good job.
Thank you. Well, it was all because of, Jamie helped me. Jamie, the producer, helped me quite a bit. So
that's good. That's good. But the new normal is this might be the way we just keep on doing it.
Absolutely.
Because everybody having to drive in, it will help Los Angeles.
Yes.
And I think you're right. You hit on something that people are finding, that the time that they have right now, they can start doing things that they have always wanted to do, but they're not doing. I started to play the ukulele.
Oh, wonderful. Cool.
It's fun. It's fun.
Totally. No, there's all kinds of opportunities now. It is fascinating to hear about the upcoming Simpsons and Rugrats episodes. So the ones that are being recorded now, when they air, we as an audience, we won't be able to tell any difference, right? They'll sound exactly the same.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Very cool.
That's definitely the idea. And I, again, because it's animation, I'm assuming that the animators, they are also not assuming, they've got to be working out of their own homes. They needed to have the line between the animators, and because there's character designers, there's sound designers, there's music, there's all these guys, and got to get really creative and figure out, what's the solution for this, instead of being the problem and going, we're never going to be able to do this. These guys have kind of pulled up their bootstraps and said, we're going to continue and we're going to do this thing. And it has been a challenge, but the producers have done a fantastic job working it so that we don't lose this season. Yeah,
that's great. That's great. So obviously the big kind of lingering question here, especially a lot of our listeners are users of Backstage, which you've spoken Backstage before, and where we're coming from. And I think the question is always, how do you get into the industry? If you're in the industry, how do you advance your career? How do you work on your craft, et cetera, et cetera? Yeah. But these days, I do think that a lot of people, regardless of their pre-existing relationship with voiceover, are going to be turning to voiceover and are going to be much more interested in pursuing it. So given that context, I'd love to just ask for let's say someone is starting off in voiceover. How do you get into voiceover today?
Today, it's a very different world that we're living in today.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got its unique challenges because of what's happening worldwide with this COVID-19. The advantage is that you are at home and this is just it's unique. People have challenges. People need to make an income. And I don't want to come across flip, and just say, you got all the time in the world. Not everybody has all the time in the world.
Right.
Some people, they've had to get super creative on how you can still pay your bills and put food on the table. But just to answer the question, taking away a little bit of that, what would you even call it? Like it's a extra challenge because of COVID, that people have time, and with a computer and with a good microphone and with an imagination, you can create anything. You don't have to buy a $2,000 microphone to do what you're doing. You could do it from your iPhone, for crying out loud. I think voiceover people, it just has to do with their own imagination and where they want to go with it. You see people giving voices to their pets, to their fish, to their dogs, to their cats. You can get creative. You can make something that's inanimate. You can make it animate. You can make a chair talk to you. You can make your bed talk to you. And the couch pull you back in and say, keep watching television. Would have sounded like a sophisticated Bart Simpson, But it's like, I think your imagination is everything and how far you want to go with it. If you just start doing it at home and have fun with it, you can't really make any mistakes. You have the opportunity to create something that is uniquely your voice. And with your friends, with your family, just start putting these little videos together. And when you do that, you start sending them out and make it a regular thing. Create your own show, create your own series, something like that.
Something recurring, because that holds you to continuing to do it, kind of sticking it out, right? Yeah. And, I've seen there's so many things that are going out there, and people are doing these conferencing things. You could even 2 friends, 3 friends could do a whole record together. They could have a script that they all have. They cast it and they do. It's like kind of like old radio. Yeah. And they do a reading of it. You're inspiring me. That sounds like a good idea. Totally. It's an interesting kind of balance between, like you're saying, like you said earlier, if you're doing it for the purpose of making money, that might be the wrong approach. But starting with something and getting to something regularly, and yes, is the advice to also, is part of the point to share it with the world, because then maybe you get feedback. Maybe it points you in a different direction.
Absolutely. But for people that are just starting out, I'm saying share it with your family, share it with your friends, and then tell them to share it with their friends. And then it will exponentially just kind of roll out. And next thing you know, you could be the guy that's all of a sudden, that your thing has gone viral.
Sure. Totally.
And, Netflix could see that and go, wow, I love this concept.
Totally.
Who knows?
A series about a talking plant could get picked up eventually if you.
Hey, you know what? Absolutely.
Totally. Okay, so what about working actors, especially working voiceover actors? What is your advice in terms of how do you submit an audition tape? Do you have any advice on how to set up a home studio? I know we talked about your home studio and blowing a gasket in your bathroom, but
but setting up the studio itself, it's not actually that hard to do. You use your laptop and you have a headset and a good microphone. It'd be good to get a baffle to put in. A baffle is just, they're fairly inexpensive, and it would sit in front of you behind your computer and behind the sound, and it'd be surrounding so that it captures the microphone, so that it captures your voice, the sound of the voice, and holds it in a small area. Okay. So you're not going to have room noise. You want to make sure the phones are turned off. You want to make sure that you can even put a sign on your front door saying, please do not disturb, do not ring bell, or put tape across it if somebody you get a delivery or something and somebody interrupts you. You don't want any interruptions, stuff like that. Set it up and make sure, for me, some advice and just regular advice, you check your microphone and you want to do a sound check. These are for guys that are a little bit more advanced. The jewelry, don't wear jewelry, don't wear.
That's a great tip. Yeah. These are great tips.
Sound kind of crazy, but 50 Cent, I love this guy. He is like such a leader in his industry. But you can't wait. I said to him, he comes in with a lot of bling, and because that was his whole personality, and it was part of the dealio with that guy. But 50, bring it down to about a nickel, because it's like it's making too much noise.
Totally.
He took it all in stride, and it's like you got to think about stuff like that, and even dangly earrings, or if you're wearing a leather jacket, that's just not going to work, because a microphone is, and Jamie will back me up on this, it's very sensitive.
Totally. That's a great tip. Yeah. What do you know about voiceover reels and kind of how do you craft a really good one?
Well, I think a good reel or a little demo tape, somebody listening to it, you want to make it so that they want to continue listening. In other words, the editing of it is really, really important. So you want to have segments of little pieces, little bits. You don't have to do whole commercial spots. And I'm talking, you can mix commercial with voiceover, or you can separate them, or you can have both and then find out, do they want just because voiceovers, it encompasses both radio and doing characters on the radio and also doing characters for television.
Right.
So you can have separate reels, but a good ear, a professional can listen to it, and I can tell in like 5 to 10 seconds whether or not somebody is somebody's competitive, meaning that they would be competing with me.
Oh, competitive. Interesting.
Yeah, and it's a good word. It's a good word. You could take competitive out and say professional. That they have to have a certain standard in order to really be able to succeed. Things like differentiating your character voices. It's been a learning curve, because although The Simpsons wasn't the first job that I ever had, but I'd been doing it for, 6 or 7 years prior to that audition. I'd done a bunch of other stuff, My Little Pony, Glow Friends, Snorks, Pound Puppies, stuff like that. But I found with The Simpsons that there were no the only character I auditioned for was Bart.
Right.
That was it.
Right.
And then the other ones, when I would get the script, I was cast as Bart and did the Tracy Ullman show, and then it went into the half hour. So I would get my script, and all of a sudden I have a character named Ralph.
And that you were given.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there was no audition, Jack. It was
I got the gig. Yeah.
I showed up the next day and at the table read, and it wasn't just me. It was Dave, it was Dan, it was Hank, and eventually Harry. All of us were given these voices, and throughout the first season, all these citizens of Springfield were being introduced to the public. Yeah. And within a couple of seasons, I had established myself, just like the others, as doing these multiple voices. Yeah. Back to that, as a voice actor, you have to be able to differentiate and make a difference between all your characters. Early on, Nelson and Kearney, they were a little too similar.
Oh, okay.
Just my own ear listening to myself back then, I went, wow, I didn't know, is Kearney going to be a regular guy? And it turns out he is. So as time went on, it just sort of, I had to kind of, like a sculptor, I had to kind of get in there with my voice and chisel this out and carve this little and make him more specific. Yeah. So that now, after all these years, Bart, Nelson, Ralph, Todd, Kearney, Database, Maggie, Chucky, these guys all are very, very identifiable. Yeah. But it took
some trial and error,
evolution to a little bit on a couple of my guys. Actually, it was just those two. So again, the tip to somebody doing this is just make your characters very, very specific and make solid choices. make decisions on who they are and what it sounds like so that you don't waver.
Yeah. That's fabulous advice. This is honestly my favorite thing to talk about is like crafting characters, especially as you're saying, like the differentiating when you only have your voice. You've said before, you study people physically. Is that true? Like you've studied mannerisms, posture. Do those things affect creating characters?
Totally. Great question. Absolutely. Because if you could see me now, like when I'm doing like Nelson Muntz, my eyebrows are way up. Whoa, you can see the wrinkles in my forehead and you can feel them in my throat. It's like, for him, it's like physically I change, and it's not anything, Jack, that I think about.
Yeah. It's
just, I know that character. In order to do it, I get into the space of Nelson Muntz and I just do it, and I lift up and
wow.
There you go. And like when I do Ralph Wiggum, when I do him, right now, I'm pulling my voice to the back of my throat. And I've never really, when I did that, I did not think, how can I change my voice physically? Yeah. What do I have to do physically in order to, I don't think about it.
Yeah.
This is my method. If you could call it a method, I just do it. I just do it. I try it out. But to get more specific on what you had said to me, I study people. I look at people. I forget what year it was. It was in the 90s. So it was Mrs. Doubtfire. That movie was Robin Williams. Miss him a lot.
Yeah.
Miss his creative juices. Watching that movie, of course, because it was about this voiceover guy, and watching him, the actress Mara Wilson.
Yes.
Was only 6 years old doing this thing. She was a little girl in the thing, and she had physically her two front teeth. She had a split. She had her two front teeth had a split. And I'm listening to her, and I remember specifically at the theater, sitting forward in my seat, looking at the screen and going, look at that. She talks like this. Yes. I go home and I remembered that. So then I'm trying to come up with a certain character. I don't have a split. My voice is a little tight today. So I don't have a little split in my voice, but I can certainly make that sound, sort of sound like that. So it's such a little thing, but man, it makes her so specific, right?
Totally. That's fantastic. And then of course, if you're creating a character that's in a recurring series, it's about honing the character and then getting back into it so that you can do it consistently with the last time you did that voice, I guess.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So, before this, with other shows that I've been on, and when we just get started doing it, and you say, all right, you did the audition, you got the job, now what? You go in and they will play you a reference tape of the job that you did that got you the part. They will play that and go, this is the character that you did. This is the one that we like.
They will.
Because absolutely, it's so not a problem. They've got that. They because these are producers, and they'll have it on hand to play it for you. And sometimes, when you go in, you'll do, gee whiz, 3-4 different versions of a 10-year-old boy. Except I didn't do that for The Simpsons. For Simpsons, it was one voice. That was it. That's what I wanted to do. And bam, Matt Groening, well, that's it. And they had hired me on the spot. But that's unusual.
Yes.
That had never happened previously, and it's never happened since.
Yeah.
Because they want you, producers, casting people, they want you to get the job. You're trying to solve, you're the solution to their problem. Their problem is, we can't cast this part. Who's going to get this part?
Totally.
So they're listening to dozens and sometimes hundreds of tapes and trying to make decisions on who's going to get this part? Who do we want to meet? I mean, with COVID, obviously, it's a whole different thing. And in some ways, I'm telling you, it's much easier. You can just do it. You send the tape in. You don't have to go there. You don't have to find out where the studio is. You don't have to drive. You don't have to put up with traffic. You don't have to park. You don't have to get there early. You do the tape. You send it in, and it's super, super simple.
Yeah.
oh, by the way, and I didn't finish that thing because I keep interrupting. Myself. The tape, 2 minutes long. You don't have to make it any longer than that.
Okay.
By the way, 2 minutes long. You want the listener to like wonder what's happening next. So it needs to be edited in a way that pulls you. It pulls your interest to see what else can this person do.
Cool.
And that's, again, where I don't know that you're going to edit this. This is a podcast, right? It's not going to be edited.
I'm not editing a thing. I'm not editing out a thing.
Sorry, Jack.
We're keeping all of this.
Oh, my God. People might have to take notes on because I'm kind of all over the place.
That's totally how this podcast is designed. Well, and I'm so glad you brought up the audition. I know you've talked about it so much, and of course you've written a book about Bart, and it's really fabulous. But as you say, that was an unusual auditioning for Bart. But what do you remember about it? You originally went in for Lisa?
Yeah, I did. And I had, about a year prior to that audition, I had met the casting director, and it was just a general. It wasn't for any specific part or show. She was just meeting with actors, and I was set up to go meet her. And she wanted to know, it was Bonnie Pietola, and she wanted to know, tell me about yourself, Nancy. How long have you been in Los Angeles? Where are you from? That kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I told her my background. And my background was very different. She wasn't a casting person for animation. She was for on camera because she was the casting director for the Tracy Ullman show.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah. So I actually am trying to think, at that time, it wasn't just prior to the Tracy Ullman show, but she was the casting director that eventually became the casting director for the Simpsons on the Tracy Ullman show. Mm-hmm. So she was just generally meeting with me, and I just told her that, I'd studied with Daws Butler, and he was the voice of Huckleberry Hound and Captain Crunch, Baba Louie, Yogi Bear.
Yogi Bear, yeah.
Graw McGraw, and did all these voices. And she thought that was really unique. And I shared voices with her, and I told her what I was doing. And at that time, I was working on several animated shows. And a year goes by, and she had remembered me. And she was now the casting director on the Tracy Ullman show, and they were trying to cast these little vignettes. And she specifically found me and looked me up, found who I was represented by, again, called my agent, said, I want to meet with her. I'm casting for this little animated little vignette on the Tracy Ullman show. Yeah. And we want her to read for Lisa. So that's how I ended up going in. But it wasn't Lisa that I saw the monologue for Lisa, and I saw the monologue for Bart. And Bart, man, it just pulled at my heartstrings. I just loved him instantly. I said, I want to do him.
That sounds like fate. Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't ask anybody. I just went in and made the decision. And I told really Matt, cool. Look, I'd like to do this. So if I had gone in and just did what I was supposed to do, I don't think that we'd be having this conversation today.
Yes, that's really great advice. Like meet with the casting director and know that it might take over a year for them to get back to you and think of you for something. And then think outside the box. If you see another part you know you're a better fit for, go for it.
That's sage advice. It's really, really good. You don't wait. Nothing is wasted. Any opportunity that you do and that you can have to network, to mix with people, and especially now with, that we have the internet, we have YouTube, you can create your own magic at home and put your own show together that we had talked about earlier. It's just like, there's no stops. It's like the world is like a blank slate right now.
Yeah. Well, and my other question, because right around that time, I think you've said before, was it a little bit of a decision was there a split in the path of like, I could go into more on camera work or I could go into more voiceover? And you were being mentored by Daws Butler, which is so huge. Did that kind of tip the scales? Like, did you feel like you had to make a choice between the two?
Wow. In all the years that I have been interviewed, nobody has asked me that question.
Nancy, thank you. Oh my gosh. Thank you for saying that.
I am serious. That is like, wow. Good job, man.
All right. We could stop there. I got what I wanted. This is great.
Okay. So this is really, oh yeah, man. That's remarkable. So listen, so much had happened. This happened. This is a great question. I'm kind of looking at it going, it happened actually about in the late 90s. The Simpsons was already on the air,
Mm-hmm.
and for about maybe 8 or 9 years. And I had 2 kids at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I still do. But I was doing a lot of, I was doing community work. I was volunteering and doing things like that, and
Mm-hmm.
putting some things together for me, things that I love to do. And I felt pulled. And I had done a bunch of on-camera work back in the 80s. I was on Cheers and Empty Nest and Mr. Belvedere,
Right.
Twilight Zone. And
Mm-hmm.
by 90-something, I had also worked on the stage and done theater, and I'd done several one-woman shows. I had traveled around the world and done some one-woman shows.
Right.
And it was just, there were a lot of opportunities, and I looked at it for myself, and I thought, you know what, this is not what I originally came out here for. I found it as a voice actor. I liked my anonymity. I liked that I could do this character and nobody knew who I was.
Mm-hmm.
But this was a while ago that this happened, but I liked it. And the other thing, I was solving a problem for myself, because the on-camera stuff to me gave me a little, I've never shared this before, by the way. This is there was a little anxiety.
Okay.
I had a little anxiety in me about it. And maybe all actors have that, and maybe that's just they use that as fuel. But I didn't, and I had The Simpsons, and I had my kids, and I thought, wow, I'm going to just do what I really, really love. So I put all of my attention on voiceover, and then that's when actually things started to open up for me even more in voiceover. Mm-hmm. I started then creating characters. I started producing. I did a thing for, a show that we had done back in 2000, I think it was 2001, called The Kellys. And it was something in relationship with Turner Sports and NASCAR, and created, it was the animation was, the style of animation was kind of choppy, but it was very early on. And the problem was that people didn't have enough power in their computers to download it fast enough. Oh. It was kind of slow to download, but we ended up doing 43 3-minute little episodes. And Cameron Manheim was on it, and Catherine Bell was on it, and Kevin Harvick, one of the drivers, Jeff Gordon. These were all voice acting, doing voices for us. And it was so I realized, wow, I can use this power that I am starting to feel to create for myself. Gotcha. In this area that I really, really love. Mm-hmm. Now, mind you, things have changed since then. Okay. I have done other things and gone back and doing more and more on camera and liking it, but it's unique because there are projects that I'm working on, and I will create a part for myself now that I want to play. Amazing. And just a little cameo, and that's really fun. Yeah. But I love writing, and I love producing because I can cast friends, and and just it's a whole different perspective. Yeah. And it's like I touched on this earlier. I think artists have amazing abilities. They have way more than just being an on-camera actor or doing just writing science fiction or just just being a ballet dancer. Yeah, you have just like a voiceover artist and just any actor. If you're going to act, the difference between acting in front of a microphone, the mic is like 4 inches from your mouth. But if you're going to be on stage, you're also acting, but you've got to hit the guy that's in the back row. Mm-hmm. So it's a minor adjustment, but the basics of the mechanics and the mechanisms that you use, the decisions that you make, all acting. Yeah. You still have to have a real character. You have to have, a relationship with the other characters around you. You might sound different. And I certainly don't have 9 spikes on the top of my head. It's just my voice.
Yes, totally.
But still, he's got to be a complete character.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, why any artist, why limit yourself? If you're in one lane and you want to switch lanes or be able to drive in multiple lanes, like you're saying, go for it.
Yeah. And honestly, it's artists are the guys who, we're the ones that really make the difference on the planet. You can read and spend the time, if you want, on Facebook and reading people's opinions and even world leaders' opinions about things that's happening right now. Mm-hmm. But from my viewpoint, it's the artist that is the one that's making the change on the planet.
Yes.
Look what we're doing right now. It doesn't take much. Just go to Facebook, but pull up any videos. So many artists are doing like what you're doing. We're doing podcasts. We're doing live feeds. We're creating things. There's people showing pictures of art and photography and little bitty videos of stuff. I mean, that is lifting up the spirit of our culture right now that we so desperately need. So even as a voiceover artist, if you've never done it before and you've wanted to do it, put something out there that somebody can look at that will make them smile.
Yes.
Seriously.
Yes, absolutely. I really agree with that it's the artists that change the way we think, for better or worse. They're the artists that are kind of the record keepers of our times.
That's right. And trendsetters. They establish, like they raise the bar so people you can inspire. You can change somebody's viewpoint through art.
Yes.
Somebody can look at some form of art. And by the way, this is the same in voiceover because it's the decisions that you make. And for people starting out, they don't have the luxury. Somebody that like myself in the position that I'm in right now, but to be able to choose what it is that you're communicating. It's the message that you're choosing. And at some point in time, that's what I hope that your listeners will get themselves in that position so that they can be a leader and help, but
sure.
That's what we do.
Definitely. Gosh, this is great. Nancy, thank you so much. This is such great advice for our times and just evergreen advice, just for any time, I think.
Thanks. This is a thrill. You had mentioned something about, I had done a book. But like right now, using that same system that Fox put it, or Disney, I guess it's Disney Plus must have paid for it. Yes. The home studio. I am upgrading this book. It's going to be a revised version. And it's taking forever to like rewrite this thing and bring, because it came out years ago. So it's like 20 years to bring this thing up to speed. Okay. The Simpsons has advanced so much and it's great fun, and no director. I'll be doing it myself in my home studio. So again, you guys can do that. You can set it up, create your own stories. You can tell children's stories and practice like that, and watch people on the street come up with characters. Another tip is that you can imitate famous people. And my feeling is the worse that you do it, the better, because that's a whole new character that is like inspired by, inspired by, you don't want to sound exactly like Tom Hanks. You don't want to sound exactly like Jack Smart. You don't want to sound just exactly like Jack Smart, but do a Jack Smart imitation.
Yeah, that's actually so exciting. If you do like a really bad version or like the opposite version, you've created a character.
Yep, exactly.
Wow. Okay, that's excellent advice. Thank you. I did have to ask one thing. It's maybe a bit random, but I had to ask, how do you take care of your instrument? Do you have a specific diet? Do you drink specific things maybe before a recording session?
It's another awesome question. For years and years, I didn't do anything. I can do things like this. This stuff to me is just kind of fun. And I do think it would warm up your voice. I hadn't done it, but I just started playing around, and I'm singing a little bit more and warming up my voice by singing like quietly to myself so the neighbors are not disturbed. But tongue twisters, you need New York, you need New York, you need New York, and say it fast. What did you do today, a minute or two to do, a thing that's distinctly hard to say but harder still to do. If you beat it to do, a quarter to do, with the rat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat to do, and the dragons will come when they sound the drum in a minute or two to do today, a minute or two to do. So you can learn that and say that. That'll warm up your pipes. As far as beverages, Usually I drink like the beverage of the week is like cranberry juice with a little and water. That's really more of a health thing. It's not really about my throat. That's really more about my digestive system.
But it's all connected. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of all connected. Warm is much better than cold.
Okay.
Because you're talking about your vocal cords, your pharynx, your larynx, and warm water won't shock you. Just, slightly warm, not hot.
Not hot. Okay.
Yeah. I avoid milk chocolate. Dark chocolate is the sweet of choice because milk tends to, for me anyway, a little lactose intolerant, tends to stuff me up a little bit.
Gotcha.
And so that would help. What else? I have a little voiceover first aid kit. I don't have it in front of me right now, but if I get a sore throat, it's actually better to actually not talk at all rather than whisper, because whispering tightens those muscles.
Yes.
And it's more of a strain, or it's better to just try to talk normal when you have a sore throat or or laryngitis. It's better to keep it open. Because when you do that, it strains your voice a little bit more than just actually talking normal. It sounds worse, but it's actually better.
Mm-hmm. That's great advice. I was wondering about what happens when Bart Simpson loses his voice. You must have happened.
Yes, it's happened a few times. They're very understanding. And again, there's a lot more leeway, and why so many actors want to do voiceovers. Yeah. There's so much more leeway with just being a voice. You don't have to memorize. You don't have to memorize the lines. You don't have to hit your mark. You don't have to do makeup. You show up early. You do your job. You find out if you deliver. Is there anything else that you guys would like? On a show like The Simpsons, it's a pretty well-oiled machine. So, but I still like to find out. And if I'm not delivering what they want. Personally, I don't have a problem if you give me a line reading. If I've already given you 4 or 5 different takes and I'm not quite understanding what you're wanting,
gotcha.
Give me a line read, because sometimes it's tough to communicate exactly that emotion, from the director's viewpoint. Sometimes it's a little challenging. So it's good to leave the ego outside the door. I mean, we as artists, we can create so much. When Meryl Streep was on the show, my God, she did like 10 different takes and they were all different. She was amazing.
Cool.
Yeah, and that's another thing about versatility. Just keep doing it different. You're going to lock into something. I know I'm taking us off track here. Go ahead.
No, that was literally my next question. I mean, thank you so much for bringing up Meryl Streep, because she has to be mentioned in every episode of this podcast. But I was actually going to ask too, how much, I know it depends on the gig, but is it okay for voiceover actors to tweak lines if they think something doesn't sound right? Are you allowed to have a conversation with the director or the writer about changing words around?
Yeah, I think that is something that is developed with that relationship.
Okay.
At the beginning, you can sometimes, you can't like at a table read, if you're inspired by something, and something you just spit out as an ad lib, next thing you know, it's written in the script because it got a huge laugh. Mm-hmm. I don't think nobody would want to stop. Nobody that's smart and creative would want to stop an artist from contributing.
Gotcha.
Voiceovers it's collaborative. There are so many different departments in putting an animated show together. And a lot of the things that I'm just speaking for myself, but even things that the other actors have done, they're just ad-libbed. The way I do it is we do 4 takes for every scene. And then they'll go back and do pickup lines of that same scene, because some things that just need to be tweaked just a little bit more. Mm-hmm. If I am inspired on take number 4, I will just say what I want to say. It's related to it. It's not a total non sequitur, but it's something that would fit. And I don't know if they use it or not. It's like the show doesn't air for another 6 months.
Yeah, fascinating.
I'll throw it out there free of charge. You can have this. And next thing you know, Eat My Shorts ends up being on a billion T-shirts, Yes.
Eat My Shorts was an ad lib, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Wow.
And it was so early. It was way, way early in a table read when we weren't even in the same building that we're in right now. And it was done at a conference room table, and I threw it out there, and it kind of stopped. Everybody was laughing so much, and golly, that was, to me, I'm kind of thrown back in my seat. I had no idea that just saying something that just came out very naturally would create that kind of an effect. But again, it's like, we're creative, and that's what we do.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's really cool. It's definitely further proof that actors and voice actors can contribute using their own imagination to change or add to a project.
Yeah. Usually, at the audition, they're definitely going to want to hear all of your ideas, and the casting person will take you through a whole series of, do that again. But can you make him a little bit, or make her a little bit older? And also, let's hear what it sounds like if make her a little bit older, and also make her a little bit more knowledgeable. Let's make her a little bit more geeky. Okay, wow. Good. And so that it will tighten it up and make it. It's helping to get it more specific. And then the casting director might say, okay, I like that, but go back what you were doing before. I like that. Let's go back to the earlier one. And you say, oh gosh, which one was that? Here, let me play it for you. They play it back. Go back to that one. And this time make her just do the same thing, but let's make her a little bit younger sounding, because your idea of what a 12-year-old girl sounds like is probably different than what their idea is.
Right.
So that's the key, is like give a lot of options.
Yeah, totally.
And ultimately, it doesn't matter. I mean, if you got the job, you got the job, right? So whatever that character is, if they don't buy your originations through working with the casting director, they will help guide you to come up with what's the best that you can do. It's fun. It's really fun.
Totally. Yeah, it should be. It should be fun, right?
Yeah. If it's stressful and it's not fun, maybe you shouldn't be doing it. Yeah.
Yes. That's great advice too. Gosh, Nancy, thank you so much. I want to let you go, but can I ask you some very quick backstagey questions?
Yeah, sure.
Do you remember how you got your SAG card?
I got my SAG card on a show called Richie Rich.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it was, here's the thing though, I had done a commercial before I did that. I did a 7-Up commercial, and I didn't have my SAG card, but they wanted me. So they signed over what's it called? It's that waiver. I forget the name of it, but it's a way to hire somebody that doesn't have a SAG card, and I forget the name of it.
Yeah.
I didn't have that. But they could still hire me, but I had 30 days to join the union, and it was SAG.
Oh, okay.
So I had 30 days. And when I got the next job, I would have 30 days to get it. I think that's what it was. And I ended up getting Richie Rich, and then I had to get my SAG card.
Gotcha.
And I felt like, man, this is like, wow, check me out. Look what I got.
Yeah. Was this all during you were also studying at UCLA at that time?
No, this was, let me think. No, yes, it was it was spring quarter. It was the last quarter that I was there.
Oh, wow.
And I had to borrow a guy's Volkswagen to drive to Hanna-Barbera. I kept getting lost. It took the 405. Then I would go up over either Laurel Canyon or one of those canyons over there. And I would get I would go the wrong way, then turn. I got so lost. I gave myself 2 hours to get there because I had no idea how to get there.
Yes.
We had to use the Thomas Brothers guide maps to do it. It was like there was no GPS. That was challenging.
That's great. Hey, it's great advice too to just give yourself lots of time driving around LA to an audition.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, going off of that, do you have a worst audition horror story?
I do. I do have one, and this was an on-camera audition actually. I went in. There was a show called Designing Women.
Oh, of course. Okay.
So I went in for Designing Women, but I was playing a character that was from New York. And so here, the casting person was doing it with a Southern accent, and I'm supposed to be doing like I'm from Brooklyn.
Oh.
And I just went blank. I couldn't do it in the same room. They were all of them sounded like they were from the South. And it was like, that was so easy. And I have such a sensitive ear.
Yes.
But to try to do then, like I'm from Brooklyn, I was so embarrassed. And, and now it makes a good story.
Sure. Of course. Yeah. A sensitive ear. Yeah. That's actually cool. Yeah.
No, I think it's a good thing. I think ultimately it's a good thing, but learn a lesson. I'm not even sure what to say about that. Again, it's like that was kind of an on-camera thing. It was all kind of adding up to, look, we're going to be focusing on this.
Yeah, yeah.
Do what you love.
Right. We always ask, what is one performance that every actor should see and why? I'm wondering if you have is there a voiceover performance that every voiceover artist should study?
Oh my gosh. Actually, I think there are several, just performances of just some iconic characters that actors created. And I don't think it's going to be a surprise when I say Tom Hanks, in Toy Story.
Yeah.
Or Eddie Murphy in Shrek, Donkey in Shrek.
Yes.
So funny. But there's another animated film that people should watch because it's not a lot of voices, but I think it's actually there's two of them. WALL-E is one that's mostly about sounds and music, but there's also one called The Triplets of Belleville, and it's beautiful.
Yes.
It's so beautiful.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the other thing is fans of The Simpsons is keep watching The Simpsons.
I was going to say, of course. Yeah. Okay, last question. What is one piece of advice you would give your younger self if you could go back in time?
Probably the one thing that I would say is that you are responsible for the condition you're in, no matter whether it's you're doing really, really well, is that you did that, you earned that, all the accolades, your successes. And also, if you're not doing so well, in other words, it's not right to blame somebody else for who you are and what it is that you're doing, because you're the one in charge. So when it comes to doing voiceovers, just ask yourself, what is it that I can do today that will help me be able to do voiceovers a little bit more today than I did yesterday? And that way you can be causative over your career. And you can gradiently just start to move yourself up so people will start to know who you are and what you do. Mm-hmm. We all had a beginning. I was a big zero when I started out, and it just, you take your baby steps, and as long as you keep on cultivating yourself and challenging yourself and doing what you love and, putting yourself out there, as small as you might think it is, your confidence level will start to build. You'll do more and more, and you will get a little bit of a following. Mm-hmm. And so when the time is right, you'll be ready. You'll be ready for it. Yeah.
That was pure podcast gold. Thank you, Nancy.
You are so welcome.
This has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much. That we really, really got the deep dive into, how to break into voiceover, but just, how to continue to push yourself as an artist. We really, really appreciate it.
Oh, Jack, this has been a pleasure. I think you're a total delight. I admire what you do so much.
Thank you so much, Nancy.
You're so skilled at it, and you really pull out these questions. So I thank you so much.
Thank you. You've made my day. You've made my weekend.
All right. Well, take care. Stay healthy, and
you too.
Catch you later, man.
In the Envelope is recorded at Lotus Productions and Hyperbolic Audio in New York City, and Soundbox LA, Mark Grouse Studios, and Buzzies in Los Angeles. Thanks as always to our producer extraordinaire, Jamie Muffett, and to the team at Backstage, Samantha Sherlock, Mark Stinson, Caitlin Watkins, and of course, Casey Howe. Visit Backstage.com, and don't forget, you can subscribe to Backstage by using the code ENVELOPE at checkout for a free trial. That's right, 100% free. For more exclusive content, join us on Facebook and Twitter at In the Envelope, and subscribe, share, and leave a comment. Who would you like us to interview next? Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time for another glimpse in the envelope.